See, this is not about the other person. The choice for you is this. If you are given a choice that you can either live joyfully, blissfully, or miserably, or in anger, or in stress, or in resentment, what is your natural choice? Joyfully, isn't it? Because every human being is looking for highest level of pleasantness for himself or herself. You can call it joy, you can call it bliss, these are just words. Essentially, we want highest level of pleasantness for ourselves. If your body becomes pleasant, we call this health. If it becomes very pleasant, we call this pleasure. If your mind becomes pleasant, we call this peace. If it becomes very pleasant, we call this joy. If your emotions become pleasant, we call this love. If it becomes very pleasant, we call it compassion. If your very life energies become pleasant, we call this bliss. If it becomes very pleasant, we call it ecstasy. If your surroundings become pleasant, we call this success. To make your surroundings pleasant, you need the cooperation of all these people. Because in creating an external situation, there are many forces involved. Not all of them you even know. You understand? You want to create a wonderful situation for yourself, you don't even know how many forces are working in that area. If you harness a few forces, if they cooperate, things will happen. If they don't cooperate, it won't happen. But for the pleasantness of the body, pleasantness of the mind, pleasantness of your emotion and energy, it's 100% you. Surroundings, creating situations in the surroundings, you need cooperation from the people, otherwise it won't happen. So only for success, you need cooperation. To keep yourself pleasant is 100% yours. So right now, you know well that you want to be peaceful, but somebody else is doing something. What are they doing? What they know best. They're abusing you. Why are they doing it? Because that's all they know. That is how they know their life, that's why they're doing it. If you become resentful and you think something will happen to them, see, these are things. Anger, resentment, hatred, these are all poisons that you drink and you expect somebody else to die. If you drink poison, you die. Very fair, isn't it so? I drink poison and you die, is it fair? So, people who are in anger, resentment, hatred, this is their thing. They are drinking poison. When I say poison, I am not saying in a moral sense. There is substantial medical evidence right now. We can show you with a blood test that 5 minutes before you take your blood test right now, 5 minutes you may remain in extreme anger and take your blood test, you will see you're chemically poisoned actually. So you're literally poisoning yourself, thinking it's going to hurt them. No, it's only going to hurt you. So it doesn't make sense to me, that's all. It's not a morality, whether you should get angry or not get angry. It's up to you if you want to make a mess out of yourself.
Don't complain about all these violent people who are doing all these dreadful things. All that it is human unconsciousness in a more pronounced form than yours. So, that helps a little bit to find almost some compassion towards all these crazy people that are doing such crazy things and creating such terrible suffering. Now, if you become compassionate towards them, don't worry. It doesn't mean that they will not experience the consequences of their unconsciousness. That still happens. By being compassionate to another human being, you don't necessarily remove the karmic consequences of their action. You yourself become free from being drawn into the karmic cycle. The act of forgiveness does not mean that this person is not going to suffer the consequences. Life makes sure, in whatever form, that they do suffer the consequences of the suffering that they inflict on other human beings. It's a karmic law. But if you don't want to be part of that anymore, if you want to step out of the karmic law, the first step and the most important step out of the karmic law is forgiveness. Then you do not feed it, you don't become part of it. That's why traditionally in spiritual teachings of various traditions, forgiveness is always emphasized. It must be real though. There are many forms of superficial forgiveness when just the mind is, okay, I forgive you. It's not deep, it's not real yet. The mind is trying to forgive. You can only forgive if you realize that whatever actions have been perpetrated are the effects of human unconsciousness. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Very profound statement. It is a profound statement that can be applied to any act of violence perpetrated against other humans or life forms. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Not knowing what they do, of course, means they are unconscious. The word unconscious probably in that sense wasn't used at the time, so he said they don't know what they do. Karmic law still operates, but without you. We are talking about something very important, and that is dealing with human unconsciousness and what looks like evil. So there are many things that are quite dreadful. How does that affect our state of consciousness, and what role does our state of consciousness play in this whole scenario? It does have a role to play. For us, important that we are no longer part of action and reaction, because the definition of karma is action and reaction, and it goes on and on. And as you can see in certain societies and so on, the karmic thing goes back centuries and centuries, the same grievance transmitted from one generation to the next and the next and the next, and they are all asleep. This is why spiritual teachings say you are asleep. They are all so unconscious, they get taken over by the collective mental emotional pattern and the mental story. They just inherit it from their parents, and then they pass it on to their children. Each generation suffers, they suffer, and at some point the suffering becomes almost unbearable for certain people within that society. And that's the beginning of a shift when it gets too much. So suffering drives humans to a point of awakening. That's a strange paradox here. The suffering is created by the unconsciousness in humans, but in some strange way, eventually, it wakes you up, it awakens you. That's the redeeming feature behind the suffering that humans create for each other. Eventually, it leads to a spiritual awakening. It's a good thing to realize it all comes down to your state of consciousness and how you relate to the people around you, and that spreads. That is what creates the world. And even how you react to when you listen to the world news has certain influence, because all human minds are connected at a deeper level. So the way in which you react to what you hear on the world news contributes. If you get on the computer or the iPad and you type in, "This guy does not deserve to live," then you become part of the same karma. If you've ever done that, please forgive yourself.